When I first began consulting the I Ching, I often got the counsel, it furthers one to undertake something. I interpreted this, unfortunately, as bringing problems out in the open that I had not addressed, as for example with my husband and children. When I did this, I found that I only stirred up hornets' nests and created more problems for myself. It took me quite a long time to realize what the I Ching meant by undertaking something. One hexagram that I received helped me begin to understand this question. It was hexagram 50, the Ting, which Wilhelm describes as a cauldron that was used to sacrifice to the ancestors in order to bring good fortune. Well, I thought, what do I have to sacrifice? I could not see myself sacrificing meat or vegetables or things like that. But it did come to me that what was useless, and this came in a meditation, what was useless for me was the amount of anger that I had stored up. There was nothing I could do with it. And so I pictured myself putting this anger on an altar. And to my amazement, it suddenly disappeared. Well, I put quite a bit of anger on that altar. Everything that I was angry about. And it was so freeing that I began to realize what it meant when I got this counsel to take this kind of action. Next, I put on my altar judgments about people that were harsh. And then I also put on the altar all of the concerns I had that I could do nothing about. And I also put on the altar images of myself that were exaggerated. I was not to take outer action without first attaining clarity about the inner truth of the situation. When I acted from this basis, my actions were harmonious and always had beneficial effects. One day, to my surprise, in my meditation, the altar disappeared and was replaced by a dumpster. But it was really to tell me that this was not a religious exercise, but an exercise of daily house cleaning. It was a wonderful thing because when I threw things in the dumpster, which were quite a number of things, I always felt freer and they were permanently removed from me, which was a great help. For a long time, the actions that I was to learn were all inner actions. Then one day, I had an experience of how to relate to something outwardly, and it was again through inner action. At the time, I was bringing up my granddaughter from 1.5 to 5 years old, while her mother worked. And I thought of this as a time when I could relearn how to bring up children by asking the I Ching and finding the I Ching way. And my granddaughter was suffering at the time from temper tantrums occasionally, and I wanted to relate to those in a better manner than the normal way I would have dealt with it would be to punish. So the I Ching gave me hexagram retreating, which is number 33, suggesting that I retreat from her. And I did not know exactly. I think it was in a meditation that I realized that it meant an inner retreat rather than an outer retreat. And I had had a meditation recently about learning to be in neutral when I am confronted with a negative situation. In this meditation, I saw myself in a car where I was in neutral with the car running and going no place, And I saw myself, what it was like to be in first gear, that I was going forward in a sense. In reverse, I was bracing myself against the situation. But neutral was being calm and composed within, and without any preconceived idea. So this hexagram retreating came to me, that I needed to retreat into neutral when I was confronted with her temper tantrum. And sure enough, it didn't take long that I had the practice. And so I did this, but the other thing that I learned to do was to withdraw eye-to-eye contact when the ego is in charge. And the temper tantrum was an attempt of the ego to master the granddaughter. So it was a question of not of retreating from my granddaughter, the true self, but of retreating from the growing ego in her. And so I retreated my eye-to-eye contact, and I retreated myself into neutrality. And then she began to beat on me and say, "Grandma, look at me." And I thought, well, I better walk away. And so I walked away, and she screamed for a minute, but then she started to calm down, because there was no inner action coming from me in the form of resistance or obstruction. There was nothing for her energy to play against.